I'm going to take you around the garden while I'm picking what we're going to be eating for part of our dinner tonight. So let's go on a little stroll. I've already been out picking some grape leaves. We have a lot of grape vines, and the leaves are really big and nice looking right now. And so I've come through and already grabbed a big handful of the really nice, fresh looking, not sort of insect bitten leaves. I'm gonna make stuffed grape leaves for dinner. And I don't so much do recipe following, so I'm kind of gonna make up my own recipe as I go along, and just whatever is looking good in the garden that I feel like would taste nice with it. So this is an overwintered pepper. These are actually cow horns. They get a lot bigger and turn red eventually, but this pepper plant doesn't look very happy. So I'm picking off the peppers kind of as they come up to prolong what I can, see if I can make that plant a little bit happier. This is Swiss chard that I picked first thing this morning. It was starting to get really big and bolt and shading out some of the other stuff that I had here. So I've already got a giant thing of washed and prepped Swiss chard inside. These are my little basil plants, and so I'm just gonna pinch off a couple of kinds of basil, mostly the leaves that are getting a little bit bitten here. We'll throw some basil in there as well. My potatoes keep flopping down and covering my basil plants here, so I will grab a little bit of that. I meant to plant those in the ground and I just didn't get around to it. So maybe I will eventually. But there's 4 different varieties of basil there. We are about to have a bunch of garlic scapes ready, so I'm just going to grab a couple of garlic scapes. I have never cooked with garlic scapes in my life, but I'm very excited. They have a garlicky flavor, apparently, and you're meant to just kind of go down right to where the first leaf hits it and pinch that off. I don't know. Oh, there we go. It just pinches off. So they're meant to be the best when they sort of curl all the way around and make a circle. So I think I could give them another day or two. Although this one is it's basically come around to make a circle. So they taste of garlic before the actual main garlic plants are ready. Ooh, and they definitely do. I can smell them already. So I'll get 3 of those. I'll leave the rest for another day of picking. And so I've got spice, I've got garlic, so I've got the cow horn pepper, garlic, basil, the leaves to stuff them with. I picked Swiss chard already, so the Swiss chard will be the main stuffing along with rice for the middle, and then we need some onions. So this is my bed of walking onions. These are the new onions on the top, and so eventually these flop over and replant themselves. So I am going to pull up a couple of these. They don't make as big a bulb as a regular onion, but you basically never have to plant them ever again, and you will eat garlic, or you will eat onions for the rest of your life. So I'm gonna pull a couple of these out, maybe the ones that look a little bit bigger. Grab that, and I'm gonna want a fair amount, so I'll grab several. Whee! It's like the whole bunch is coming out with it as it goes. 3, maybe we'll do another one more. Yeah, there we go. That one's a bigger one. Oops, 2 came out with that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little baubles on this one, and I'm just going to drop them in the hole that one came out of. And ta-da, I just planted my next generation of onions right there. And I'll use the greens as in there as well. So I think that is all I need. Now we're going to head into the kitchen. I've taken my garden harvest into the kitchen now, and I thought I could show you how I do a little bit of cooking. So I am not a stuffed grapevine or stuffed grape leaf cooking expert. I've certainly done it a few times, but it's not something I cook super regularly. So this is less of an exactly how-to and more of to give you an idea when I go and pick stuff out in the garden, how I almost design the meals and recipes that I'm cooking based on what came out of the garden. So these were my walking onions, and in case you missed it the last time, the little baubles on the end here are little baby onions, and so if you plant those in the ground, they grow into more onions. So I thought I popped all of those off that were on the ones that I harvested, but I missed a batch, so I will go and stick these back in the garden as well. So I just using a good couple of the walking onion bulbs as just onions. I'm going to slice these up. They are a little bit smaller than a standard, I mean they're actually quite a bit smaller than a standard like bulb onion. They will get bigger than this. These have not been in the ground all that long, and I haven't actually really cooked all that much with them. But they're a variety of onion, and I know how to cook onions, so I'm chopping the small bulbs, and then I'm also going to use a good portion of the greens, the green stalks as well. As you get more up towards the end, they get a little like tougher and more fibrous, so I'm not going all the way up, but there's some nice flavor in there as well. And I always keep just a big pile that becomes the compost, goes on the table as well. You do want to make sure if you are using something like this that you peel all of the little onion skin part off, because that part isn't very nice. So no matter what I'm cooking, if it's going to be savory, like not a sweet dessert kind of a thing, it doesn't really matter what it is. I always start with garlic and onions, which is why if you've watched any of my garden tour videos, there are a lot of garlic and a lot of onions planted in our garden, just because that is something that is a huge component in basically everything we cook around here. So it doesn't matter what sort of flavor profile I'm going for. To start off, I chop up some garlic and some onions. That's what I'm going to kind of start the base with. It doesn't matter, is it Mexican, is it Japanese, is it Indian, is it a traditional American, is it Italian? You start with garlic and onions for all of those. So that's my onion. The garlic that I'm using is not bulb garlic. These are garlic scapes. So you saw me pick these. These, if you let them go, will turn into garlic flowers. That's what this is like. That's your little garlic flower bulb there. But it will, if you let them flower, it will make the garlic bulb itself not as large. And since I want large bulbs of garlic, what they recommend that you do is harvest the scapes and use those as like basically garlic flavor. Just cut them up almost like you would a green onion, and it's going to give you the flavor of garlic. And it smells really good. This is the first time that I've ever used garlic scapes. I watched some YouTube videos on them and to kind of find out the basic idea of when to pick them and how to use them. And the internet seems to say when they form a full circle, that's when to pick them, because that's as big as they will get before they start to go woody. So you can pick them before that. They won't be as big, so you won't get as much from them. And if you pick them much after that, they start to get woody and tough, like at the bottom. So that is my garlic and onion. This is gonna go on the stove with a little bit of olive oil. while I get the next part ready. That's on the stove, just on like a medium. I am bad about forgetting that stuff is cooking and burning it, so I like to go low heat. But that's not for any specific reason other than that I burn stuff a lot. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rehydrate some TVP, which stands for textured vegetable protein. We are not vegetarians. We do eat meat. We just don't eat tons of meat, and we really like the vegetarian alternatives to meat as a way to add protein to something that cooks really fast and is cheap and easy to cook with. So I'm just going to add a little bit of TVP. I'm not going to add tons. So I pour a little bit in here, and I'm just going to put some boiling water on top of this. So put boiling water on top. Gonna give it a little bit of a stir. I basically pour enough on it to sort of cover it, and then you're gonna let it sit for a little bit. This does not have any flavor to it, and so you definitely want to put some seasonings in there. I have some dehydrated mushrooms that I just powdered, like put them in a blender. And you know what? I'm gonna go nuts. I'm gonna pour those all in there. I've had this forever and I haven't ever used it. So now or never. And then this is powdered cherry tomatoes. It's gotten a little clumpy. I made this last year with our yellow cherry tomatoes. We have a strict no yellow tomatoes in the tomato sauce rule in our house because it makes the tomato sauce a gross color. So I dehydrated a bunch of them last year to use anytime you need just a bit of tomato taste without like wanting to open a whole jar of tomato sauce. So I'll put some tomatoes in there as well. And I'm also gonna stick some like salt and pepper and spices from the spice drawer in here. To be honest, I may put some chicken stock powder in, which seems like a weird thing to do with a vegetarian meat substitute, but like I said, we're not vegetarians. We just try to predominantly eat plant-based. So if you want the flavor of meat, use chicken stock. I am going to put in some nutritional yeast, which is going to give a little bit of that sort of edamame flavor, umami flavor. I'm going to put in some salt. We're very classy with our lack of salt shakers. I'm gonna put in some pepper, and like I said, a little bit of chicken stock powder. They make tons of vegetarian broth powders as well, if that is more up your alley. Or you could use beef powder or whatever you wanted to do for that. And stir this up. So this is mostly rehydrated now. But I've got a little bit more I want to cook in the pot before I put that in. So I'm going to set that aside and just let it sit in the juices for a bit. This is my basil that I picked. I have a couple of different varieties there, and also scavenged from the fridge some cilantro that I picked earlier. We get points at our house for using things out of the fridge, so I get a point for using the leftover cilantro from the last time I picked it. So just giving those a bit of a chop. And now I'm going to take the cow horn pepper that I picked. When I have tried these before, they've packed a little bit of a punch, and I have a bit of a wimpy mouth, so I'm only going to use the middle section here. This is going to be a large amount of food, so I'm not all that concerned about it. I also chop it super awkwardly because I do not want to touch it with my hands, because then I rub my eyes and my eyes are on fire for the rest of the night. Ask me how I know. So I'm just going to dump these in the pan and give it a stir. Got all of the herbs in there. It is starting to smell really good with the garlic and the onion and the oil and the herbs. This was Swiss chard from earlier, I showed you in the garden tour, the place where I harvested the Swiss chard from. I just washed it and chopped it up super roughly. There's a lot. This whole bowl is full of Swiss chard. I'm going for it. We've hit the point in the garden where we're just overwhelmed with like leafy greens as it starts to get, it's the middle of June right now. We've had a bunch of days in a row of like 90 degrees. As it starts to get this hot, the leafy greens they start to bolt and just not be quite as good. Plus all of the other things around them, like the tomato plants and stuff, are getting bigger. So I'm harvesting huge amounts of greens right now. I'm just gonna cook this whole lot in this one thing, and we'll have a bunch more filling than we'll need for the grape leaves, and I'll use that for something else later this week. So I'm gonna dump this all into the pan too. There was so much chard in that bowl, it did not all fit, but I covered the pan with a lid so it kind of steams it a little bit, and I turned it down to low so it's not going to burn the stuff on the bottom. It'll kind of steam the rest of it. So this is my heavily seasoned textured vegetable protein that I will be dumping in once there's enough room in the pan, once the Swiss chard is broken down a little bit. And then I'll just let all of that cook together for a little bit. So all of the seasoning that I put in here is basically the salt and pepper and seasoning for the whole pan of stuff. The only other thing that I'm going to add is rice. I'm not normally a gizmo person in the kitchen, but a rice cooker is by far my favorite thing, and you can see that on the counter behind me. So I've got rice that is most of the way cooked. It's a little bit crunchier than you would normally eat your rice because we're going to cook the stuffed grape leaves. We're going to steam those, so we will have a bit more cooking for that. It's going to cook everything just a little bit more, so nothing has to be fully cooked all the way through, because we are going to cook that again. So I'm going to throw this in, give everything a stir, and then I will be back to show you as I'm ready to add the rice. Okay, I am back now that my whole mixture has cooked. This is everything all thrown in there. I did have a little taste test, and I thought it tasted pretty good. I did put a tiny bit more black pepper in with it. But it's all cooked down from like overflowing full of Swiss chard, steamed that down, and then dumped the textured vegetable proteins with all of the seasoning in it and cooked it for a bit until it went mostly dry, so there's not a lot of liquid still in there. So I'm going to dump that into a bigger bowl here. Because I'm going to add a lot of rice to this as well to create my stuffing mixture. So I've got it all in here. Before I add the rice, this is all super hot, as you can see from the steam. It smells very good. Oh, I also added some lemon juice, just a good couple of glugs of lemon juice. And I'll put lemon juice in with the water as it steams as well to get a lot of that lemon in there. If we had fresh lemons, I would have used those, but we didn't. Another thing that I'm going to stir in with this before I put the rice is these are fermented collard green stems. We had a half jar of them in the fridge, and I really like the taste of like the brined grape leaves, which would be kind of the more traditional way I think of to make this dish, would be to use sort of preserved lemon leaf or grape leaves rather, to make the wrapping. Well, I picked the grape leaves fresh, you just watched me do it, and so they have not been brined. I've done brined leaves in the past, and I might make a batch of those again, but I like that brining taste, and so I thought I have this half a jar of brined green already in the fridge, so I just chopped it fine and mixed it in. I thought that may give just that little hint of brining that you get if you use brined grape leaves. So that is not at all official. No recipe has ever told you to do that, but I was sick of that half jar of pickles in the fridge, and I wanted a little bit of that taste in here. So that all went in, and now to add some rice to this. I probably cooked more rice than I needed to add on this. So I'm going to, I did 3 cups of rice with 3 cups of, well, with 2 and a bit cups of water, so that it's got just a little bit of that crunch left to it, so that it will cook the rest of the way. I put about half of that in, and I'm going to stir it up, and I'm just going to look at it and see, does that look about what I want, or do I want to go ahead and add more rice? My kiddos are huge rice fans, so if I don't use it all, that will be part of their lunch tomorrow, is rice. And this is already, there's a lot of filling here, so I don't feel like I need to make super tons more of it. Plus I really like, these are kind of going to be like hors d'oeuvres. They're going to be fairly small, and I want them to be really punchy and have a lot of flavor in there. And the greens mixture and the TVP did have a lot of punch. The more rice you add, the more it kind of dilutes that rice, not a super flavorful ingredient. So I think that's about right. I think that's about what I want. It's about half and half, sort of rice to greens mixture, maybe a little bit less rice than greens, maybe 2/3 greens TVP, 1/3 rice, but it's all nice and blended up. I think it looks good. I'm going to let this cool while I talk to you guys and show you how I get the grape leaves ready. So these are the grape leaves that I picked like an hour ago outside. All I did when I came inside was I rinsed them off in cool water in the sink, and then I poured boiling water over the top of them, and they've just been sitting in boiling water here. Obviously the water is no longer boiling. So that's sort of kind of like par cooked them or blanched them. It's not exactly what blanching is, but it softened them up a little bit is sort of my thinking. Since these are these are young leaves and they're very fresh, I didn't feel, and they will be steamed, I didn't feel like they needed a whole bunch of cooking other than that. So what I am going to do, so I rinse them. We don't spray anything in our garden, so I'm not worried about chemical residue, but just dust and like bird poop and stuff. You want to rinse them well, and then I sort of soften them up a little bit. I personally like to take off, so right here where the stem comes in, there's a bunch of like the coarser stem parts in there. I kind of just like to take a pair of scissors and snip that out, just because I find it a bit tough. So I'm going to grab some scissors. And go through and snip those out. I'm just going to drop them into this little Tupperware thing when they've had that center snipped out. So I just snip out the just that little tough part right there. This may not be necessary. It's kind of just my personal preference. And you're not taking out a lot of the leaf. Just a little bit there where that stem attaches, and it gets a little bit tougher. When I have done preserved ones of these, I did this, I snipped out the middle, and then I sort of put them all in a stack and rolled them up, and then just covered them in a brine and let them sit out to ferment. And I forget if it was, you kind of just taste them every once in a while. It was maybe a week or something, and then you get those preserved, and then they will stay in your fridge for, for like a year, if you've done that part to them. So if you have access to fresh grape leaves and you want to make your own, that is how you can do that. I can't say I've ever seen fresh grape leaves in like a big grocery store, but like a national chain in the United States kind of a thing. But I'm sure I know I have seen them at like international grocery stores if you have one of those nearby, or obviously if you have like a Greek grocery store or market stall someplace close to you. I'm sure that fresh grape leaves are a thing that would be possible for you to find, or find a friend that has a garden that has some grapevines, because you will get a absolutely huge number of leaves on the grapevines. So I'm more than happy to share grape leaves with anybody who would be so inclined, if a friend were to ask. So you may just reach out. I'm also a huge fan, this is a very big aside, I'm also a huge fan of the Buy Nothing project and a Buy Nothing group. It's like a local free cycle kind of a thing. So you can always ask on there. People ask for absolutely all kinds of things, and everyone is always pleased when I offer things like this. I had a bunch of persimmon trees pop up from all of the persimmon seeds that I dropped after processing persimmons last year. People were coming out of the woodwork wanting these tiny little baby persimmon trees that won't make fruit for 15 years. But I'm always happy to share, and I find often gardeners are. So if you're desperate for some grape leaves to make your own stuffed grape leaves, there are probably people nearby that can help you satisfy your craving for grape leaves. Okay, that's enough of watching me do this. They're all the same, and once the filling has cooled down enough, and the only reason I'm letting it cool down is just that it's easier to handle. I don't think it would cause problems to use it hot, other than it would burn my hands, and I don't want it to burn my hands. So once it's cooled down enough, I will be back to fill some grape leaves. So I take the leaf, I fold over that little key-shaped to close it up, put the pretty side of the leaf down, the bright green side down. I think if I remember right, a recipe called it the shiny side of the leaf, so you can put the shiny side down. Put in that, I'm using it's like a heaping tablespoon is what I'm using to create the little log of filling. Fold the bottom part up, fold the sides in, and you want to fold the sides in like all the way down to the tip so that those sides stay nice and neat and tidy, and then roll it and roll it. There we go. I think I remembered how to do it. So you've got your little parcel. And I am just going to, I'm going to use all of the grapevines that I harvested, and as much of the filling as that used, and then I'll put the rest of the filling that will just become leftovers. The filling tastes nice, so we will eat that maybe for lunch some other day. I will report back with at least a picture of the finished meal, if not a taste testing of the final ones, to prove that I really did finish making all of these.